What is up, noobs and noobettes? Charles or Atingleee here, back with a fresh ass haircut. Welcome to the video, guys. Today it's going to be jump shots versus drop shots, man. Which is better? If you've always wondered which is worth you changing your button layout, or at least worth learning, then this video will definitely clarify things for you. And if you are someone that plays on the default layout, this video will definitely make you reconsider switching to one of the other layouts, because being able to slide and prone while still aiming, or jumping while still aiming, is definitely a big advantage in Call of Duty, and hopefully you guys will be able to decide which one is worth you learning after this video. Either way, without further ado, let's jump straight into this shit. Okay, so let's get it started with jump shots. I want you guys to keep in mind that when I say jump shots, I mean both with and without thrusting. These are both really effective and you guys should definitely look to implement them in your gameplay. Certain Call of Duties were a lot more effective when it came to jump shotting, mainly the Treyarch games, I would say. For some reason the character model lifted their legs a bit more, or they jumped a bit higher, and it just seemed a little more effective than the Infinity Ward games. However, drop shotting was a lot more effective in Infinity Ward games. Okay, so why should you be using jump shots? Well, firstly, and the most obvious reason, is the fact that it makes you a more difficult target for the enemy to shoot at. It's always harder to shoot someone that's moving than someone that's standing still, so being someone that's just flying across the enemy screen like that will definitely give a big advantage in that gunfight. Just one thing though, although it's very tempting to just jump shot in every single gunfight, you should definitely try not to get into this habit, because at times it can leave you being a sitting duck and it is not always your best option. I know you may see good players just jumping around and flying around every corner, and although this is a good tactic, it can often leave you being a sitting duck if there is another enemy with the guy that you're shooting at, and you definitely do not want this. Another great thing about jump shotting is that it opens new possibilities for you in gunfights. For example, you could be having a gunfight with someone here and you can quickly dip behind this cover. They'll be waiting for you to jump back out, whereas you can just float up and finish them off like this. You can do this over many objects in the map, so make sure you're keeping this in mind when you're getting into gunfights. Also, if you are jumping over objects, you want to make sure you're not just flying up as high as you possibly can, because you'll pretty much just be a sitting duck floating in midair. What I like to do often is pretty much treat the object as a head glitch and just float up just enough for me to see the enemy, and then tap my thrusters while I'm at the peak, just to keep myself at that similar level and keep my shots on target. A subscriber asked me how I'm able to keep my aim on target so well when I am thrusting, and it all comes down to understanding how the thrust impacts your aim. For example, if you're only thrusting left and right, it doesn't really impact your aim much, and you should find it relatively easy to keep your aim on target. Whereas if you're thrusting forwards in any direction or backwards in any direction, it actually changes your aim. For example, you'll notice here when I'm thrusting forward, my aim is dipping down, and when I'm thrusting back, it actually shoots up. So you need to keep this in mind in the gunfight. I would highly recommend hopping into a private match and just practicing aiming at a specific target and trying to keep your shot on target. And when it comes down to doing it in the game, you also have aim assist to help you out, so it should definitely be a lot easier. You guys also need to keep in mind that you don't need to thrust when jump shotting. The old school jump shot still works and it's still really effective. I would highly recommend sliding before doing this jump shot, as it gives you a greater distance coverage and you'll also fly across the enemy screen more quickly and in essence be a more difficult target. A small tip I can give you guys when implementing jump shotting is that if you're approaching a certain area, say an enemy just appears out of there, I was going to my right, so their aim is going to be going to their left, trying to follow me. What I like to do is as soon as I see the enemy, I'll jump back the other way, and this basically allows me to throw off their aim, make sure they're missing more bullets, and give me more time to finish off that enemy. Remember, you always want to jump back in the opposite direction, and that is why you often find people just zigzagging and going back across mid gunfight. It just throws off your aim more, guys, and it's just really effective, especially if timed perfectly. Okay, so what are some negatives of jump shots? Well, the most obvious thing initially being that it kind of throws your aim off, and it definitely does take some getting used to trying to keep your aim on target when you are jump shotting. And if you don't have a control layout that allows you to aim and jump at the same time, then jump shots aren't really that effective for you, as the whole point of a jump shot is to just buy you more time and be more evasive in a gunfight, and if you're unable to aim in that time, then you're pretty much just wasting your time. The next thing is what I mentioned before, and it's that if you're just jumping and thrusting up in the air like this, although it does give you an advantage against the enemy you're shooting at, if they have a teammate with them, you're pretty much a sitting duck in midair, and it'll make it a lot easier for them to finish you off. Also, if you're inside a building that has a low ceiling, then you can't really jump shot too high, so this may throw you off. You'll bump your head on the roof and it'll knock you back down, and you definitely do not want this in a gunfight, as it'll just basically cause you to throw your aim off target, and odds are you're going to lose that gunfight. Okay, let's move on to drop shots now. So while jump shots make you a more difficult target by making you a moving target, drop shots do this by making you a smaller target. So just imagine aiming at someone and they're prone on the ground. You have like a small circular hitbox that you can aim at as opposed to a full body, and this definitely makes it a lot harder for you to get your shots on target because the enemy is a much smaller target, and therefore you need to be a lot more accurate. Drop shotting is definitely more of a defensive tool than an offensive tool, so use it accordingly. I love to use drop shots if I've turned the corner and an enemy tagged me and you know they're going to be really aggressive. I just turn around and just pre-fire, and they'll turn the corner not knowing you're on the floor, so by the time they aim down, you'll be able to hit 1 or 2 shots and then make it more of an even gunfight. Or even better, make it a gunfight that favors you. So definitely use drop shots if you're able to, as they're an effective tool, and I definitely find it a lot more satisfying to get a kill when drop shotting than when jump shotting. A lot of people think that drop shotting isn't the greatest thing to do because it allows the enemy to get free headshots on you, but what you need to understand about headshots is that they don't actually reduce the shots to kill unless the enemy is at a further distance. So pretty much from short to medium range, tagging every single bullet in the head will not require any less shots to kill than it would if you're tagging the enemy in the chest or stomach. So keep this in mind, and that's what makes drop shotting a really great tool. You're basically making yourself a really small target without any penalties. Actually, scratch that. You are penalizing yourself in one way, and that's the fact that you're pretty much a still target. So this is why you need to use drop shots more cautiously than jump shots, and you definitely want to keep this in mind, as the enemy can still move around and jump around, whereas you're just stuck in a one spot like this. Although drop shotting is more of a defensive maneuver, I've definitely versed some players that pretty much drop shot every single gunfight and they were able to be very successful. It all comes down to your playstyle and how well you can keep your aim on target while you are proning. However, you'll definitely find yourself being a lot more successful when drop shotting with a weapon that has a fast fire rate, ideally a submachine gun, because you need to keep in mind that you really want to be drop shotting in closer range engagements, and having that fast fire rate of an SMG or any weapon that has a fast fire rate, to be honest, will allow you to still hit your hip fire shots while drop shotting, as sometimes you'll find yourself having to turn like this, and being able to hit those bullets or more bullets than you would with a weapon that has a slower fire rate will definitely allow you to be more successful in that gunfight. It'll allow you to be much more lethal, and it'll definitely open the window for you using those drop shots in a more offensive manner. So in summary, although more of a defensive tool, the drop shot can be used offensively as well, and it is a great tool to catch an enemy off guard by turning a corner and then just proning and pre-firing. I use this all the time, and it's a really good technique, guys. It makes you a more difficult target to hit, it catches the enemy off guard, and it buys you enough time to finish them off. And although it is definitely a great tool, just like the jump shot, it does have its downsides, as I mentioned earlier, and this is mainly the fact that you become a still target and you're not really able to move when you do drop shot. To summarize both of them, both techniques can be used offensively and defensively. For the jump shot, you can use it to be a moving target and therefore a more difficult target, or you could use it to escape an area while still returning fire and being a competitor in that gunfight. With the drop shot, you can use it offensively by having a weapon that has a fast fire rate and utilizing its hip fire at those close ranges, as well as the ability to make yourself a smaller target for the enemy to shoot at. Whereas its downfall is, again, the fact that you are a still target, and once the enemy does get their shot on you, they're going to find it pretty easy to finish you off. Okay guys, now that we've covered both techniques, the question you've all been waiting for is, which of the two should you be using? Well guys, in a perfect world, you'll be able to jump, prone, slide, as well as aim all at the same time. However, we don't all have the luxury of a modded controller or just the free time to be learning a new button layout. But if you only to be picking one of these techniques, then the clear winner, guys, is definitely the jump shot, man. Sorry to all you drop shot lovers, but unfortunately with these new mechanics and the ability to just thrust out of the enemy screen like this, escape an area while shooting, shooting enemies over objects, being a difficult target in every gunfight, being able to fly around corners and catch enemies off guard is just a much bigger advantage than being able to make yourself a smaller target. So if you were to pick one of the two, guys, I would definitely be going with the drop shot. And if you need help deciding which button layout you should go with, I would either go with the bumper jumper, but this makes it a lot harder for you to be able to use your tacticals, or as most people seem to be doing nowadays, the stick and move layout. And that's pretty much it, guys. Hopefully you did find this useful in some way. If you were torn between the two, definitely go with the jump shot, guys. If you're willing to buy a modded controller or are willing to learn a new button layout, then I would definitely do your best to, you know, be able to master both techniques, guys. Being able to have full control over your player's movement will give you a big advantage when maneuvering the map and getting into gunfights, and being able to choose which of the two to do in gunfights will be a big advantage to you. So that's pretty much it for this vid, man. Hopefully you did enjoy it. If you're new to this channel and you found it useful, make sure you hit that subscribe. There's going to be a lot more tip videos coming out in the near future, so there's always something to look forward to. If you liked it in general, make sure you drop a like. If you disliked it, drop that dislike, man, but make sure you tell me why you disliked it so I can improve in the future. And that's pretty much it, man. If you have any questions about anything I mentioned or anything I didn't mention, make sure you drop it below. I reply to every single comment. And yeah, man, that's pretty much it for this vid, guys. I'll catch you all in the next one. Don't forget to rate this shit, and catch you all, guys. See you in the next video. Until next time, peace out, noobs.